The journalists over at Kotaku always have the worst takes possible, and instead of getting back to writing game guides and trying to become relevant again, they've decided to attack content creators, saying the campaign against Avowed reveals the bigotry that fuels the anti-woke. I have a few things to show off, but before I get into the topic, if you enjoy the content I create, check out the links in the description, join the community in my live streams, and consider supporting through Patreon or YouTube memberships. Now, obviously, the people at Kotaku have a hard-on for attacking the individuals they hate. They view content creators like myself as the number one enemy. They will talk about us all the time, and now they've spewed another terrible take. This is by John Walker. It says, in 2024, there has rarely been a game announced without a small but tiresomely vocal group of grifters, of course, attempting to whip up a controversy for their social media followers. The problem with this whole entire statement is that we are not trying to whip up a controversy. We are simply reporting on the facts and the information that we have. When we see an individual who publicly admits they hate gamers, we are going to call them out. When you have an art director who is saying they want to push crusty white men out of the gaming industry, we are simply going to cover it. If there were not those statements out there, if there was not questionable gameplay decisions or the game didn't look terrible, there would be nothing for us to talk about. We're not whipping up controversies. Whenever I hear someone say the word grifter now, I instantly discard their opinion because they have no clue what this word means anymore. But they continue with, no matter what the title and no matter who the developer, every announcement is meticulously scrutinized for any faint sign of a thought crime, an element that could be construed by these charlatans as proof of wokeness, something they decry as a DEI initiative, and then this speculative notion is spun out to followers as the latest attempt to take away your games. The latest target is Avowed, but in picking on it, those running the grift have rather shown their hand. Yes, again, we are simply calling out the content that we see. We are going to meticulously scrutinize content because when it comes to video games, there are games that are released every day, every week, every month, and every year. There are millions of titles that have already released that we could play. So why does this company believe they deserve our $70 and they have higher editions like with Star Wars Outlaws, $130 for one of the editions? If you are going to expect our money, you should also expect your product to be scrutinized. Sometimes I scrutinize games and I actually go, wow, this looks fantastic. I'm really happy with the way the developers are acting, how passionate they are. There are plenty of games that release every single year that are 10 out of 10s that do not surround themselves and a controversy, but at the end of the day, these individuals at Kotaku, Polygon the Gamer, ignore these amazing titles to try to trash the real gamers in the industry, content creators like myself, because they cannot fathom the idea that somebody can sit at a computer, turn on a webcam and a microphone, and be significantly more relevant than them. Like any online scam of any note, they say, it's so brazen that it's only more depressing that it works so well. This just comes from a place of anger. They are simply angry that content creators are more relevant than they will ever be. The shtick works like this. A game is announced, and because it's 2024, that game may not exclusively focus on a white dude saving the world for a lady in a bikini. I mean, some still do, but this is an industry that creates games that feature a broad range of characters. Nobody has a problem with video games featuring tons of different types of characters. Doesn't matter your race, your gender, your sexuality. The problem is the way that these elements are presented. When a character exists only to represent a certain skin color or a certain sexuality, and they are just there as a token character, that's the problem that people have. If there was simply a black character in a piece of entertainment and their race was never brought up, that's great. I hope that they're a good character. I will still criticize the character if they are written poorly, but ultimately, I don't just see a black character and go, oh my god, it's DEI. These individuals are being intentionally disingenuous with the argument that they are making here. They are saying that as soon as we see a woman or a person of color, we attack a game, but that is certainly not the case. I mean, of course, I'm sure that some individuals out there do that, but not the majority of them, and certainly not a lot of content creators. They go on to say the grifters recognize this as a useful target for their grift, making claims that the game is artificially altered from what should have been based on a desire to be perceived as progressive. We are seeing a major progressive push within the video game industry. We are seeing these companies be filled to the brim with activists, radical leftists who want to push their personal opinions and their stances into their products. Look at Veilguard. There were tons of self-insert characters within that game, and that is disappointing to see because that's not the type of entertainment that we want. I don't even want to call it entertainment because at the end of the day, it just exists to preach to you, which is so sad. They talk though about how, except with Avowed, those behind the grift forgot to include a couple of vital stages. They forgot to develop these various claims on which to condemn the project, failing to identify something that has been artificially included or an element that had been censored in the name of wokeness. They talk about how there's no white man. That's right. This violently racist piece of marketing includes a black woman, a elf-like woman, a blue man, and an ambiguous race dwarf. How more clearly could the developer be saying that it wants this game to exclusively be played during Drag Queen Story Hour at your local library? I've seen some people roast this image simply because we've gotten so many cringe squads over the past year, like Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and Flintlock, The Siege of Dawn, In Concord. But I haven't seen anybody really say, oh my god, this image right here proves that they don't want white men playing this. They don't have any links to any tweets or posts even claiming this, so I think they're just making this up to, again, write this article, this hit piece against anybody that they disagree with politically, and that is very sad to me. I do want all types of people in the gaming industry, but these individuals preach about diversity and inclusivity until it comes down to diversity of thought and an inclusivity of people with opinions that differ from theirs. Then they're all for kicking people out of the industry and trying to silence voices, which is pathetic. I might sit here and criticize these games for appearing to be DEI projects, yes, and pushing these DEI initiatives, but if it was an amazing game, I would live stream it, and I would have to admit it because I live stream all these major titles. You can see my first impressions. Sometimes I'm wrong. Sometimes I go, wow, I had covered this leading up to release, but I'm actually thoroughly impressed with it. That rarely happens, but it does, and I would love to be proven wrong. Maybe Avowed will be fantastic, though from what we have seen so far, it has been highly criticized, and that's not because we're racist, sexist, misogynists. It's not because of that. It's just because a lot of the marketing material so far has simply looked pretty freaking bad. Again, I sit here and I try to give these people, right, the benefit of the doubt that maybe they will prove us wrong, but they typically never do. All of these developers really only create one type of project. Then, of course, they go into talking about, Elon Musk and how he's covering the video game industry now and how he's bringing a lot of attention to these things. I understand that you are salty that someone like Elon Musk is posting about this game, but he is just an individual with an opinion. And when you have an art director behind a game like this making racist posts saying they want to kick crusty white dudes out of the video game industry, that's not going to sit well with a lot of people. And they talk about how hot off the back of their success in destroying another RPG, Dragon Age the Veilguard, which utterly flopped thanks to their efforts with a miserable 1 million sales in its first 2 weeks, they refer back to that extraordinary win as proof that Avowed is doomed to the same terrible fate. I'm not sitting here saying 1 million sales is nothing, but in the grand scheme of things it is. We are talking about BioWare here. We are talking about Dragon Age, an established franchise, multiple entries, millions and millions of fans, and they mustered up 1 million sales, and that means that the game underperformed. That means that it has not done good. It has not even hit the sales at launch of Inquisition. From what we understand, of course, maybe we're wrong, but they haven't proven us wrong. And it did not utterly flop. Back of their success in destroying another RPG, they say, you had the ability to cover this game. There are other YouTubers and content creators who also had the ability to cover this game that could have liked it, but they did not show up. Nobody showed up to defend this game because it's indefensible. It is a terrible experience all around. The atmosphere is completely off. The environments are just okay most of the time. It's an extremely linear experience, in my opinion. The characters and general story writing was abysmal. The gameplay was okay. I enjoyed it to a certain extent, but it did get quite repetitive. And in totality, it did not feel like Dragon Age. It just was not the experience that we wanted. And then, yes, you have to acknowledge the fact that there is modern day terminology like transgender and non binary, and there's top surgery scars and picking your pronouns, which isn't going to sit well with the majority of people. It's just mental illness, the character creator. And of course, they just say all this is about is pure bigotry, which is certainly not the case. We are criticizing video games, just like you are allowed to criticize video games. Maybe you should get back to playing video games instead of writing hit pieces against content creators and people you just generally do not agree with, because every time you have a take like this, you get wrecked for it. It's got 125 likes, 203 comments already. It hasn't even been up that long, and people are pointing and laughing, saying, hey guys, look, a Kotaku journalist has another shitty opinion. Is it, or is it just a testament that woke games fail, and so does the toxic ideology? Maybe this is a wake-up call to let it all go. Where are the wokies playing? Yeah, they could have proven us wrong. There could have been 1 million people in this game on Steam. They could have shown up to support it, but they didn't. There's 8,900 people in game, nearly 9,000. It's not working out for them. Or maybe it's how their employees attack potential customers. I'm tired of giving my money to people who hate me. Go fuck yourself. And this is the general consensus when developers admit that they hate their audience. People are not going to show up to monetarily support them, and that's something that they need to realize. I can't say I'm particularly shocked by Kotaku releasing this absolutely unhinged hit piece on gamers and content creators in defense of a title like Avowed, and I'm thinking that Avowed is going to be mildly successful because it is Game Pass day one, so I'm sure that it's going to bring in a lot of gamers that way, though I do not think it's going to be the smashing success people expect. Maybe it'll be fantastic. I will be streaming it at launch because that's only fair. If I'm talking about it, I should be playing it. But so far, things are not looking good for this game, and the media is already melting down over the fact that gamers are not happy with the way that the art director acted and just this project in totality. But that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, and if you didn't, give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I'll talk to you all again in the next video really soon.